In March of this year, a 48-year-old software engineer named David opened his portfolio tracker on a Tuesday morning and saw $752,183. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. He had never hit a number that big. His 401k, his Roth, his taxable account, all pointed the same direction for the first time in his life. He felt done, completed.
I am Michelle Lane, but you know me from that channel as the cartoon-style character Money Mitch. Let me say one thing before we continue, and then I will not bring it up again. I have gathered all my knowledge in a book on my website. If you want it, it is there, just in the description below. That is all. Now let's continue.
Safe. And that feeling, that warm, quiet relief that washed over him in his home office, was the single most dangerous moment in his entire financial life. Because David did not understand what the number $750,000 actually means. It means that a normal 8% market correction, the kind that happens every couple of years like clockwork, will erase $60,000 from his account. $60,000 is roughly what David saved in a good year. It means the market can now destroy more of his wealth in a single bad month than his entire annual salary can rebuild. And David, like almost everyone at this level, was about to learn that the rules changed underneath him without anyone telling him. Today we are going to walk through exactly why $750,000 is the most dangerous number in finance, what the data shows happens to people who cross it, and the 3 rules that separate the people whose $750,000 becomes $2 million from the people who quietly drift backward and never fully understand why. Here is why this number is different from every number before it. At $10,000, a 10% drop is $1,000. Annoying, maybe a week of take-home pay, but forgettable. At $100,000, a 10% drop is $10,000. That stings. It feels like a setback, but you can reasonably save $10,000 in a year and repair the damage. At $750,000, a 10% drop is $75,000. That is more than the median household income in the United States. You cannot save your way out of a $75,000 loss. Your paycheck, the tool that built the entire pile, is now too small to fix it. This is the moment the game flips. Before $750,000, your income was the engine, and your investments were the passenger. After it, your investments become the engine, and your income becomes the passenger that cannot steer. And most people do not even notice the flip has happened until a correction comes and the math refuses to cooperate. The rules changed, but nobody sent the memo. To understand what this flip means in practice, let me show you 3 people who all crossed $750,000 in the same year. Their stories are not hypothetical. They are composites of what the data shows happens over and over again at this exact level. First, meet Marcus. Marcus is 52, a logistics manager earning $78,000 a year. He reached $750,000 through 26 years of automatic contributions, boring index funds, and a lifestyle that never expanded to match his raises. Marcus is disciplined, patient, and quietly proud of the number he built. But Marcus has a blind spot, and it is the most common blind spot at this level. He has never once calculated his total fees. Second, meet Elena. Elena is 38, a marketing director earning $112,000. She hit $750,000, faster than Marcus, because she saved a higher percentage and because she took calculated risks that mostly paid off. Elena is smart, confident, and increasingly convinced that the boring path that got her to $750,000 is not ambitious enough for her next chapter. She is starting to believe her money deserves a more exciting strategy. Third, meet Sarah. Sarah is 45, a school administrator earning $64,000. She reached $750,000, the slowest of the 3, through patience and a deep fear of loss that was forged in 2008 when she watched her parents' retirement collapse. Sarah's fear served her well on the way up, but now, at $750,000, That same fear is about to become her most expensive liability. 3 people, same milestone, same starting line. Watch what happens next, because the math does not care about their intentions. Marcus lost money the quietest way possible. He had never read his statements line by line. He assumed his employer's 401k provider and his old advisor were charging something reasonable. They were not. Buried across his accounts was a combined fee load of roughly 1.1% per year. 1.1% does not sound like a crisis. On $750,000, it is $8,250 a year. $8,250 that comes out whether the market is up or down, whether the advisor added any value or not. Over the next 10 years, that fee will cost Marcus approximately $135,000 in lost growth. That is the present value of a modest house, a college education, or 3 years of comfortable retirement, and Marcus never once felt it leave his account. Fees are the only expense in your financial life that compounds against you. A 1% fee is not just 1% subtracted, it is 1% not compounded. Over decades, the absence of compounding on that missing 1% is the real damage. The industry makes billions on this exact gap, the gap between what people think they pay and what they actually pay. Marcus did not fail because he made a bad investment. He failed because he never ran the one number that mattered most. Elena's mistake was faster, flashier, and in some ways harder to recover from, because it felt like genius for the first 8 weeks. She took $200,000 out of her index fund allocation and moved it into a concentrated portfolio of 5 growth stocks. She had done the research, she understood the businesses, and she was not gambling. She was accelerating. The first 2 months validated everything. Her $200,000 became $242,000. She was up 21%, while the market crawled along at 3%. She started thinking about which advisor to fire, which car to upgrade, which vacation to finally book. Then earnings season arrived. 2 of her 5 names missed on guidance. 1 got downgraded by 3 analysts in a single morning. The 4th drifted sideways for months. The 5th held up fine, but fine cannot compensate for 4 simultaneous disappointments. Her $242,000 became $168,000 in less than 6 weeks. She had not just lost $32,000 from her original $200,000. She had lost the 7% she would have earned if she had left the money in the index. Another $14,000 of silent opportunity cost. The combined gap was over $46,000, and that $46,000 represented the growth generated by 6 years of her earlier discipline, undone in a single quarter. Elena did not blow up because she was reckless. She blew up because she was competent enough to be dangerous. At this net worth level, competence without humility is the most expensive combination in finance. The market does not care how smart you are. It cares how long you stay. It rewards the patient. It punishes the brilliant who cannot sit still. Sarah's mistake was the most socially acceptable of the 3, which made it the hardest to notice. She had been terrified of losing money since 2008, so when her account crossed $750,000, she moved $400,000 into a savings account paying 4% and left another $150,000 in bonds. Only $200,000 remained in stocks. Sarah felt responsible. Her parents had been reckless and lost everything, and she was not going to repeat their mistake. But here is what Sarah did not understand. The enemy she was protecting against, a market crash, is temporary. The enemy she exposed herself to, inflation, is permanent. 4% in a savings account minus roughly 3% inflation leaves 1% real return. 1% on $400,000 is $4,000 of real annual growth. Meanwhile, the stock market has historically returned around 7% after inflation over long periods. The gap between 1% and 7% on $400,000 is $24,000 a year. Over 15 years, that gap compounds to roughly $600,000. Sarah's fear of a temporary 20% drop that would have recovered within a few years cost her a permanent $600,000 she will never get back. Safety is not about avoiding volatility. It is about avoiding permanent loss of purchasing power. Sarah confused the two, and her retirement will be materially smaller because of it. This is the cruelest trap at $750,000. The people who try hardest to protect their money are often the ones who quietly lose the most of it. So what is the actual playbook for the moment your net worth crosses $750,000? What should you do in the first week, the first year, and the next decade to make sure you are not Marcus or Elena or Sarah? The first rule is the hardest to follow because it requires you to overcome your own psychology. You must accept that your money is now bigger than your income. This is not a metaphor. It is a mathematical reality. At $750,000, a normal 7% market year generates $52,500. If you earn $80,000 a year and save 15%, you are putting in $12,000. Your money is now out-contributing you by a factor of 4. This means your behavior is now more important than your effort. A single bad decision, chasing a hot stock, panicking in a correction, paying hidden fees, can undo more growth in a month than you can replace in a year of working. The hardest adjustment at this level is recognizing that the skills that got you here are no longer the skills that keep you going. Getting to $750,000 rewarded discipline, saving, and consistency. Staying above it and growing it rewards restraint, patience, and the refusal to tinker. These are opposite skills. Most people keep using the only muscles they trained. They try to hustle their way past $750,000 the same way they hustled to get there. But the hustle that built the pile will destroy it if it never learns to stop. Your job has changed from builder to guardian, and most people never get the memo. The second rule is about what you actually do with the money, and the answer is more boring than anyone wants to hear. You change nothing about the investment strategy that got you here. The same index funds, the same allocation, the same automatic monthly contribution. The strategy does not need to become more sophisticated because the number got larger. The strategy was always designed to handle any number. People who upgrade their strategy as soon as they have something worth protecting almost always downgrade their results. They hire an expensive advisor. They buy a complex product. They diversify into things they do not understand. Complexity at this level is usually a sales pitch dressed as sophistication. The wealthy understand something that the almost wealthy do not. The simplest strategy that works at $10,000 is the same strategy that works at $750,000 and at $5 million. It is buying the entire economy, paying almost nothing to own it, and waiting. Everything else is noise, and noise at this level is expensive. The third rule is the one nobody follows because it sounds like a conspiracy theory until you run the numbers yourself. Audit your fees like a prosecutor. Every account, every statement, every line. Find your expense ratios, your advisory fees, your administrative charges, your 12B-1 fees, your wrap fees, whatever they call them. Write them down in one place. Multiply each percentage by your $750,000. That number, the annual dollar cost, is what you are paying for the privilege of being marketed to. Then look at what a simple low-cost index fund charges. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, all offer total market funds for roughly 0.03% or less. On $750,000, that is $225 a year. The difference between a 1.1% fee and a 0.03% fee is about $8,000 a year. Over 20 years, that difference compounds to over $300,000. That is a second retirement account, hidden inside the first one, that you reclaim by spending an afternoon reading your own statements. The fee audit is the single highest returning financial activity you can perform at this level. No stock pick, no market timing, no tax strategy will add more to your bottom line than finding and eliminating hidden fees. Yet almost nobody does it because fees are designed to be invisible. The industry does not call them fees. They call them expense ratios, advisory charges, and management costs. They are all the same thing, a slice of your snowball being carved off while you sleep. David, the engineer from the opening, never ran this audit. He did not know he was paying 1.3% across his accounts. When he finally looked, the number made him physically ill. He fixed it in 2 hours. Now let us talk about the psychological attack that hits at this exact net worth level. Because it is universal, and almost nobody is warned about it. When your portfolio crosses $750,000, the daily swings become emotionally significant in a way they never were before. A 1% up day is $7,500 appearing from nowhere. A 1% down day is the same amount vanishing. On a 2% day, which happens several times a year, the swing is $15,000. That is a used car. That is a family vacation, moving up and down between breakfast and lunch. Your brain was not designed to process numbers that large that change that fast with no action required. The primitive part of your brain interprets a $15,000 drop as a threat, and threats demand a response. Fight or flight, sell or hide. That ancient wiring worked beautifully when threats were predators you could run from. It is catastrophic when threats are normal market volatility that you should ignore. The investors who win at this level are not the smartest. They are the calmest. They understand that daily movements are noise, not signal. They check their accounts quarterly, not daily. They have removed the apps from their phone's home screen to add friction to the checking impulse. They have trained themselves to feel the urge to sell and then do nothing. Doing nothing on purpose is the highest paid skill in all of investing, and it becomes exponentially more valuable as the numbers get larger. There is another psychological trap at this level that is less obvious but equally destructive. It is comparison. At $750,000, you have more money than roughly 85% of American households. But you do not compare yourself to the median. You compare yourself to the people ahead of you. The friend whose startup exited. The coworker who bought Bitcoin in 2015. The neighbor with the house and the boat, and the annual vacations to places you cannot pronounce. $750,000 starts to feel small, not because it is small, but because your reference group changed without your permission. Comparison is the thief of satisfaction, and at this net worth level, it is also the thief of rational decision-making. The urge to close the gap with the person ahead of you is what pushes people to chase yield, to concentrate, to leverage, to do all the things Elena did. Elena was not greedy. She was comparing. She looked at a colleague who had turned $200,000 into $800,000 on a tech stock and decided she was falling behind. The comparison cost her $46,000. The lesson is not to avoid ambition. The lesson is to make sure your ambition is pointed at your own numbers, not someone else's. Your $750,000 does not know what your neighbor has. It only knows what you do with it. Here is a practical move that costs almost nothing and protects everything. At $750,000, you should carry an umbrella insurance policy. Umbrella insurance is liability coverage that sits on top of your auto and home insurance. $1 million of coverage typically costs between $150 and $300 a year. That is less than $1 a day to protect your entire net worth from a single lawsuit. If you are at fault in a serious car accident and the other party sues you, your auto insurance might cover the first $300,000. Your umbrella policy covers the next $1 million. Without it, your $750,000 portfolio is the defendant's asset. With it, your portfolio is insulated behind a legal and financial wall that costs pennies a day. Most people at this level insure their car, their house, their phone, and leave their single largest asset completely exposed. Fix this in an afternoon. Call your insurance provider and ask for umbrella coverage. You will never notice the cost, and you will never stop being glad you have it. This is what the wealthy do that the almost wealthy skip. They protect the downside before they chase more upside. Now let us talk about the single most powerful word in finance at this net worth level: automation. The reason automation matters more now than ever before is that your emotions are now the single biggest threat to your wealth. Fear, greed, envy, boredom. These are the forces that will try to pry your hands off the wheel and steer you into a ditch. Automation removes emotion from every decision that matters. Your contributions fire automatically on payday, before you can see the money or feel tempted. Your rebalancing happens once a year on a schedule, not when the news makes you nervous. Your fee audit happens every January on a calendar reminder. You never decide whether to invest. You only decide whether to stop investing, which is a much harder decision to make in the moment. The system does the boring work while you live your life. Marcus automated everything and then deliberately made his accounts slightly annoying to access. He removed the trading app from his phone. He set his brokerage password to something long and unmemorable stored in a password manager. He added enough friction to every bad impulse that by the time he could act on it, the impulse had passed. The best portfolio is not the one with the highest theoretical return. It is the one you will actually leave alone. And finally, let us talk about the one move that almost everyone at $750,000 gets wrong: tax location. This is not the same as tax preparation. Tax location is where you put which assets. It is the difference between holding bonds in your taxable account or in your 401k. It is the difference between your fastest-growing holdings sitting in a Roth where the growth is never taxed again, or in a taxable account where it is taxed every year. Most people give zero thought to tax location. They have one allocation spread identically across every account. This is leaving money on the table. The general rule is simple. Put your least tax-efficient investments in your tax-advantaged accounts and your most tax-efficient investments in your taxable account. Bonds, which throw off interest taxed as ordinary income, should live in your 401k or traditional IRA. International stocks, which may qualify for foreign tax credits, should live in your taxable account. Your highest growth assets, which you expect to appreciate the most over decades, should live in your Roth IRA, where that growth is never taxed. This reshuffling does not change what you own. It changes where you own it, and it can add tens of thousands of dollars to your after-tax retirement income without adding a dollar of risk or a minute of extra work. Spend one afternoon with a spreadsheet mapping your asset location. The return on that single afternoon will compound for the rest of your life. So let us come back to David in his home office. David felt safe, he felt done, and those feelings were warning signs he did not recognize. The people who thrive past $750,000 understand one thing, that the people who stall never learn. This number is not a finish line. It is an inflection point. The math changes here. The risks change here. The required skills change here. The person who got you to $750,000, the disciplined saver, the consistent investor, the patient accumulator, must now evolve into someone slightly different. Someone who audits fees ruthlessly, who automates relentlessly, who resists the urge to upgrade strategies, who protects against lawsuits, who plans tax location intentionally, and who above all learns to do nothing during the moments when the brain screams loudest for action. That evolution is hard. Most people never make it. They treat the number as permission to relax, to get clever, to hide from volatility, or to impress people who will never be satisfied anyway, and the number drifts, quietly, slowly, without a single red day that would have triggered an alarm. The destruction of a $750,000 portfolio is almost never a crash. It is a slow leak dressed in good intentions and reasonable-sounding upgrades. Protect the number from yourself. Audit the fees. Automate the process. Ensure the downside. And then get out of the way. If this showed you something you were about to step into without realizing it, subscribe to Desmond Wealth. We map the hidden math behind the milestones everyone celebrates and almost nobody explains. No hustle, no shame, just the numbers, so you can see the trap before you are standing inside it. Because the most dangerous number in your financial life is the one you think you have already figured out.